Welcome to our deep dive into the world of Nikki Giovanni,
Yeah.
one of America's most celebrated poets.
Mm-hmm.
We recently lost her at the age of 81.
Oh, wow.
So exploring her work and legacy feels especially timely now.
I agree.
You know, you've all shared excerpts from her bio on her website,
Right.
a YouTube interview,
Yes.
and even a podcast paying tribute to her,
Mm-hmm.
which is a great mix for us to dive into today.
That's wonderful. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it is.
Giovanni's influence goes way beyond poetry. You know, she was a vital voice in the Black Arts movement.
Absolutely.
And her impact on American literature is undeniable.
It really is. I was struck right away by the tone of her bio on her website.
Oh, really?
It's so conversational almost, like she's sitting right here chatting with us. She tells this story about a nun who disapproved of Richard Wright's Black Boy.
Okay.
Even as a young girl, Giovanni knew that wasn't right.
Wow.
It makes you wonder, where do our own literary tastes come from? You know?
That's a great question.
What were those early influences for you?
Well, for Giovanni, it seems like those tastes were shaped by her mother's library. Think about it. She had everything from, the greats like Richard Wright,
Right.
Langston Hughes, to what Giovanni jokingly calls trashy novels.
Okay. Interesting mix.
That's a very wide range.
Yeah.
That exposure to a variety of styles likely influenced her own unique voice. This blend of the personal, the political, and the everyday, all wrapped up in accessible language.
I love that. And she talks about how important music was to her development, too.
Oh, interesting.
She even poses the question,
Okay.
where do your dreams come from? It made me stop and think about all those songs that have shaped my life, too.
Right.
Yeah. That question is a perfect bridge to Giovanni's time at Fisk University.
Oh, okay.
She was part of this early entrant program.
Okay.
Seems like she was always pushing boundaries even then.
Yeah.
But things weren't always easy for her there.
Oh.
She actually ended up getting expelled.
Expelled? What happened?
Yeah.
Is it that rebellious streak showing up again?
It sounds like she was having some trouble adjusting.
Okay.
And maybe let that independent spirit get the better of her.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. Instead of letting this derail her, she used it as a chance for some serious self-reflection.
Oh, wow.
She realized how much she needed an education and took responsibility for her actions. She even went back to talk to the dean of women at Fisk.
Wow. I'm guessing that Dean must have been pretty special to give her a second chance.
It seems that way.
Yes.
And Giovanni's willingness to admit she was wrong definitely played a part, too.
Right.
This speaks to the power of mentors in our lives, people who believe in us even when we stumble.
Absolutely.
And to the importance of recognizing our mistakes as opportunities to grow.
Yeah.
Have there been mentors in your own life who helped you through a tough time?
Many. Absolutely. Everyone needs someone in their corner.
Right. So she ends up graduating from Fisk, but then she mentions in her bio having no money, no patience for stupid jobs, something a lot of us can probably relate to.
Right. But she found another great dean who helped her get into the University of Pennsylvania's School of Social Work.
It doesn't seem like a very Nikki Giovanni career path, though, does it?
It doesn't. I'm guessing she felt the same way.
She did. It wasn't the right fit, but it opened the door to Columbia University's MFA program.
Oh, wow.
She jokes about how Columbia owes me a degree, always that sharp wit.
I love that.
Finally, it seemed like she was finding her place.
Right?
But even at Columbia, it wasn't all smooth sailing.
Really?
It sounds like those early career struggles were pretty intense.
Oh.
She mentions in her bio that no one wanted to publish a Black girl writing militant poetry.
Wow.
I can't imagine how frustrating that must have been, especially at a time when her voice was so needed.
This was the 1960s, the heart of the Black Arts movement.
Right.
Self-publishing was a statement in itself. And for Giovanni, it was both an act of defiance and entrepreneurialism.
Right. I see.
It takes guts to put your work out there when the traditional gatekeepers are shutting you out.
Absolutely.
She was determined to carve her own path, and she wasn't going to let anyone stop her.
She even launched her second book at Birdland Jazz Club in New York City.
Oh, wow.
A poet in a jazz club.
Oh, different.
That's not something you see every day.
It makes perfect sense when you think about Giovanni's love of music and her desire to push boundaries.
Right.
She wasn't content with fitting into any neat little box.
Yeah.
She was blending art forms and reaching a wider audience.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, what are some of the unconventional ways you've seen people express themselves and challenge expectations in your own life?
Oh, that's a good question I'm thinking about.
I know you sent these YouTube interviews.
Yes.
And they are amazing.
They
How
are.
her wisdom and humor just shine through.
Yes.
There's this one line that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
Um, Show me someone not full of herself, and I'll show you a hungry person. What do you make of that?
It's classic Giovanni, isn't it?
It is.
That blend of wit and deeper meaning. On one level, it's funny, but it also speaks to a powerful message about self-love, especially for Black women.
Yeah.
You know, she's saying, know your worth, own your power, don't be afraid to take up space. And she championed this message throughout her career.
She makes it so relatable, too. He talks about looking in the mirror and smiling at yourself every morning, something we can all do no matter what's going on in our lives.
Right. That simple act speaks volumes about self-acceptance.
Yes.
It's about setting a positive tone for your day, appreciating who you are, flaws and all that. It ties into her views on relationships as well.
Okay.
Honesty, respect, cherishing those simple things.
I see.
Yeah.
She doesn't shy away from the tough stuff either.
Right.
She has this quote about making mistakes. In this era of cancel culture, I wish more people would adopt the idea that mistakes are a fact of life. It's your response to the error that counts. And it's such a refreshing perspective, especially in a world where everyone's expected to be perfect all the time.
She's acknowledging the inevitability of mistakes, but more importantly, she's framing them as opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
She was always evolving, always learning,
Right.
and always open to new ideas.
I see.
It reminds us that it's okay to not have all the answers,
Yeah.
and that growth often comes from those moments when we stumble.
In one of the YouTube tributes, they talk about her love for Black people and how to be Black in America is to be great. It's so powerful and resonates with that idea of finding strength and beauty in who you are, regardless of what society might try to tell you.
Exactly. It's about resilience, creativity, celebrating your heritage, and finding power in your identity. It's an invitation to all of us to reflect on how our backgrounds shape our experiences and to find pride in who we are. This idea of self-acceptance seems to be woven through so much of her work.
There's this line from the podcast you shared that really gets to the heart of who she was. She wasn't just a poet. She was a truth teller.
That resonates with everything we've seen so far.
It does.
It's her authenticity, that willingness to be vulnerable and speak her truth, that makes her work so impactful. To close out this part of our deep dive, I'd love to hear that poignant quote from the Audacity podcast about Giovanni's activism.
It's a powerful one. They talk about her activism and all the losses within the movement. It says, for a while, progress was made along with a certain degree of happiness. Because I wrote a book and found a love and organized the theater and even gave some lessons, some lectures on Black history, and began to believe all good people could get together and win without bloodshed. Then Hammarskjöld was killed, and Lumumba was killed, and DM was killed, and Kennedy was killed, and Malcolm was killed, and Everett was killed, and Schwerner Chaney and Goodman were killed, and Liuzzo was killed, and Stokely fled the country, and Leroy was arrested, and Rapp was arrested, and F. Thompson and Cooper were killed, and King was killed, and Kennedy was killed. And sometimes I wonder why I didn't become a debutante sitting on doctors' porches, going to church all the time, wondering, is my eye makeup on straight? Or withdrawn, discoursing on the stars and the moon, instead of a for real Black person who must now feel and inflict pain.
Wow, that's incredibly powerful.
It really makes you feel the emotional toll of those losses.
Right.
We talked about her journey, her blend of the personal and political.
Right.
But what stands out to you about Giovanni's work as a whole?
What strikes me is her dedication to truth-telling. Whether she's writing about love race or everyday moments, there's this honesty that shines through. It's like she's inviting us to see the world through her eyes without any pretense.
It's not just in her poetry either. You hear it in her interviews, her storytelling. She's just so genuine.
It's that authenticity that allows her to connect with readers on such a deep level. She's not afraid to be vulnerable to show her flaws, even admit when she's wrong.
Right.
And by doing so, she gives us permission to do the same.
It's like she's saying it's okay to be yourself, complexities and all.
Exactly, and finding beauty in those imperfections. Her poem, Nikki Rosa, is a great example of this.
Oh, yeah.
It challenges the romanticized view of poverty often portrayed in literature.
Okay.
She writes, Black love is Black wealth, and they'll probably talk about my hard childhood and never understand that, all the while I was quite happy. It flips the script, doesn't it?
It definitely challenges assumptions. It's not about denying the hardships, but finding those moments of joy and resilience within them.
And that perspective shift is powerful. It makes you think about how we often frame narratives, especially around marginalized communities.
Speaking of powerful, one thing we haven't touched on much is her writing style. What makes her voice so unique?
Her use of language is deceptively simple, yet it carries so much depth. Take Kidnap Poem, for example.
Okay.
She uses this playful, almost sing-song rhythm, but the message is one of strength and defiance.
Wow.
And if they catch me, I will say, yes, I took your daughter, and you damn right I'm going to keep her.
There's this boldness and confidence in her words, even when dealing with difficult subjects.
Exactly. And she often incorporates elements of Black vernacular music and oral traditions, making her work feel both familiar and innovative.
She also plays with form and structure. Some of her poems are very short, almost like snapshots, while others are longer, more narrative-driven. She's not afraid to experiment.
And that willingness to experiment, to break free from traditional forms, is part of what makes her work so engaging. It's like she's constantly pushing the boundaries of what poetry can be. It makes me think about how her legacy extends beyond her individual poems. She inspired generations of writers and activists to find their own voices and use them to create change.
Absolutely. She showed the world that poetry can be a powerful tool for social commentary, personal reflection, and celebrating the beauty of everyday life. She paved the way for so many others to tell their stories authentically and challenge the status quo.
It's interesting because her influence can be seen in so many contemporary artists and writers, especially those exploring themes of identity, social justice, and resilience.
Think about poets like Warsaw Shire, Dana S. Smith, or Tracy K. Smith. They all draw inspiration from Giovanni's fearless approach to language and her ability to blend the personal with the political.
And her impact goes beyond the literary world. She was a cultural icon, a voice for the voiceless.
Right.
Her words resonated with people from all walks of life.
She wasn't afraid to speak truth to power even when it was uncomfortable. She challenged societal norms and pushed for a more just and equitable world. I'm curious, how do you think her legacy will continue to evolve in the years to come?
I think her work will continue to be rediscovered and reinterpreted by new generations. Her themes of love, loss, identity, and social justice are timeless, and her bold, uncompromising voice will always resonate with those who are fighting for a better world.
Her work is definitely a gift that keeps on giving.
Mm.
I'm still thinking about that quote about the weight of history and the fight for social justice.
Right.
It seems like a perfect bridge to discuss her activism and the impact she had on the world.
You're right. Her activism wasn't separate from her art. It was interwoven into the fabric of her being.
Okay.
It fueled her writing and informed her worldview.
So as we move into the final part of our deep dive, let's delve into the ways Giovanni's activism manifested and how she used her platform to amplify the voices of those who are often silenced. You know, that quote from the Audacity podcast really stayed with me.
Yeah.
That sense of progress and hope followed by such profound loss. You know, it really underscores how Giovanni wasn't just observing the fight for social justice.
Right.
She was living it.
Absolutely. Her activism wasn't some separate thing.
Right.
It was woven into who she was, both as a person and an artist. You know, it fueled her writing and gave her a platform to amplify the voices of those who are often silenced.
Yeah, thinking about her early career, she was right there in the thick of the Black arts movement, a time of immense creativity and social upheaval.
She embraced the idea of art as a tool for social change. She saw poetry as a way to challenge the status quo, to give voice to the Black experience, and to inspire action. Her work from this period is incredibly powerful, full of righteous anger and calls for liberation.
But it wasn't just about protest and revolution.
Right.
You know, she also celebrated the beauty and resilience of Black culture, the everyday moments of joy and love.
Yes.
She had this incredible ability to balance the personal and the political, which made her work so relatable and impactful.
Take a poem like Ego Tripping. There may be a reason why. It's this dazzling exploration of Black history and mythology, this affirmation of Black identity. She writes, I sat on the throne drinking nectar with Allah. I got hot and sent an ice age to Europe to cool my thirst. It's playful. It's empowering.
Wow.
And it challenges traditional historical narratives.
Her work often explored the complexities of womanhood, too. She wasn't afraid to delve into the challenges faced by Black women, the expectations placed upon them, and their strength in the face of adversity.
One poem is a great example.
Okay.
She celebrates Black women's beauty, resilience, and power while also acknowledging the pain and struggles they endure.
Right.
She writes, she is a woman and strong. She has suckled her children on a dry breast. She has looked down on the weak with pity and the strong with suspicion. It's a powerful testament to Black womanhood.
And her activism extended beyond her writing.
Yes.
You know, she was involved in various community organizations, gave lectures, and used her platform to advocate for social justice causes.
She spoke out against police brutality, racial injustice, and the Vietnam War. She was a fierce advocate for equality and never shied away from speaking truth to power, even when it was unpopular.
Her activism wasn't limited to any specific time period either.
Right.
She remained engaged throughout her life, speaking out against the Iraq War, supporting the LGBTQ+ community, and championing environmental causes.
What's striking is that her commitment to social justice never wavered. You know, she was a lifelong advocate for those on the margins, always striving to make the world a more just and equitable place.
Thinking about her legacy, it's clear that her work continues to resonate with people today. Her poems are studied in classrooms, her words are quoted in speeches, and her voice continues to inspire activists and artists around the world.
She paved the way for countless writers and activists to use their voices to create change.
Mm-hmm.
Her impact can be seen in the work of contemporary poets, musicians, and social justice leaders.
She showed us that poetry can be a tool for resistance, a source of healing, and a celebration of humanity. She taught us to embrace our complexities, to speak our truths, and to never stop fighting for a better world.
As we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I'm left with this feeling of gratitude. Gratitude for Giovanni's artistry, her courage, and her unwavering commitment to justice.
Me too. She was a true visionary, and her words will continue to light the way for generations to come. If you haven't already, I encourage you to explore her work. You won't regret it.
There's a depth and honesty to her writing that is both comforting and challenging.
Right.
It invites us to look inward, to question assumptions, and to connect with the world around us in a more meaningful way.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the incredible life and legacy of Nikki Giovanni. Her story is a reminder that even in the face of adversity, we have the power to create change, to find beauty, and to make our voices heard.